Hello my friends, in today's video we will take a look at the DJI Pocket 2 almost 3 years after the release. I have made multiple videos about the Pocket 2 over the years, and if you have watched any of them, you might know that it is still one of my all-time favorite cameras regardless of category. Rumors about Pocket 3 have been around for a while, but the Pocket 2 is still the latest handheld gimbal camera from DJI. In this video, I will explain why I am happy to keep waiting for Pocket 3, and I will try to evaluate the overall performance of the Pocket 2 in 2023 context. If you're not familiar with the concept of the OSMO Pocket, it is basically a sensor with a lens mounted on a tiny gimbal which is mounted on a handle. After smartphones and action cameras, it is the third type of handheld camera that fits into a pocket as the name suggests. A very important aspect of the Pocket 2 is the focal length, which is 20mm full frame equivalent. I think that it is probably the best compromise. It is wide enough to be immersive and provides sufficient field of view for video blog type of content. At the same time, it doesn't have the typical flat action camera look. It is the middle way between the main smartphone lenses, which are about 28 to 30mm equivalent after stabilization, and action cameras which are between 11 and 16mm. A very valid option is to use a wide-angle lens with Pocket 2, which provides 15mm full-frame equivalent focal length with very good image quality. Anamorphic lens for Pocket 2 is also available, and a video about that will be in the description. Pocket 2 uses a high-resolution 60-megapixel sensor, which was quite a surprise back in 2020. Getting good video quality out of a small high-resolution sensor is very challenging, but DJI somehow got it right, and I mean very right. The 4K video quality is excellent for a Pocket device even by 2023 standards. It is a level above any action camera currently on sale. I would say that it is roughly on a level of 1-inch compact cameras, which is very impressive considering that it uses a 1/1.7-inch sensor. Another video quality related topic that I want to address early in this video is the fact that the Pocket 2 is not using local tone mapping. Local tone mapping is a technology used mostly by smartphones to create HDR-like look characterized by overexposed shadows, artificial textures, and occasional cluelessness of automatic white balance. Pocket 2 doesn't do that. It captures a very reasonable amount of dynamic range that reveals a sufficient amount of detail in shadows, but at the same time, it doesn't create a cheap HDR look. That pretty much makes the Pocket 2 the only option for a handheld pocket camera without action camera look or local tone mapping. That means that the Pocket 2 is a rather important device in my opinion. Probably the main benefit of that 64-megapixel sensor is that it uses live cropping video zoom. It is surprisingly usable up to probably 1.5 times and very useful. Besides the relatively large sensor, Pocket 2 also uses a very wide f1.8 aperture. That means that it is still the best pocket camera for low-light use. Even in comparison with the new OSMO Action 4, it is still much cleaner and looks much better. There are some areas where it shows its age though. Whilst it can shoot 4K 60p with no crop, which is quite impressive, 4K 60p image quality is noticeably worse than 4K 30p. There is no option to shoot in HEVC, which is possible with all action cameras of this generation. It can only shoot 8-bit footage up to 100 megabits per second. Despite that, I'm still very happy with the video output of the Pocket 2. Another very important aspect of the Pocket 2 is the gimbal. The gimbal on Pocket 2 is a more versatile method of stabilization. It offers 4 stabilization modes, those are the tilt lock mode, follow mode, all follow mode, and POV mode. A big advantage of gimbal is that it can keep the horizon leveled, which always makes the footage look more classy. The response of the gimbal is very predictable, which makes it great for just pointing the camera around. It can also be used for special modes such as panorama photography, object tracking, moving time-lapses, and so on. Another advantage of the gimbal is that it can be controlled remotely, so we can basically compose the shot using the smartphone app. A weakness of any 3-axis gimbal is the walking, since it cannot stabilize up and down movement. In comparison to the best action cameras or even smartphones, Pocket 2 is not that stable when walking. The amount of up and down movement is not that bad in my opinion. It is a compromise and I think that it is worth it. On the other hand, gimbal stabilization will never struggle in the low light, which is often an issue with digital stabilization. The joystick located on the control stick module can be set to pretty slow speed, so it works very well for panning. A downside of the gimbal is that it is a sensitive device that is not meant to take any punishment. It also isn't particularly suitable for mounted use, as the gimbal will drift over the time if you move the camera. Some people also ask whether it is suitable for something like motovlogging, and the answer is absolutely not. Regarding the stills, Pocket 2 can produce very impressive 64 megapixel JPEGs or 16 megapixel RAWs. The image quality with these is again the best among compact consumer cameras. These are very detailed and the RAWs capture a lot of dynamic range. Pocket 2 has longer focal length and wider aperture than action cameras, which means that it needs to use the autofocus. The autofocus on Pocket 2 uses both phase detection and contrast detection, and it works very well. The depth of field is also quite deep, so it has pretty easy job. There is some focus breathing, but I don't think that anybody will complain about that on the Pocket 2. The main compromise of the Pocket 2's form factor is the 1.08-inch screen. You will mostly be able to use it for composing your shots and maybe for adjusting exposure. Brightness and sharpness is also okay, so even though you won't be able to check the focus, it is fine for intended purposes. Of course, you can always connect it to your smartphone if you need to use a larger screen. The user interface and the settings are affected by that screen size as well. The settings on the Pocket 2 are not the most complex, so once you set it up properly, you don't have to use the menu that much. Pocket 2 also has 3 buttons which have various functions that are pretty easy to understand. Additional control stick adds another button and a joystick. DJI Pocket 2 uses an 875 mAh battery. I was able to get 118 minutes of recording on a single charge at 4K 20p and the highest quality when it was new. I was storing my Pocket 2 at about 70% charge level, so the battery in my almost 3 years old unit is as good as new. The battery is non-removable, so taking a good care of it is pretty important. DJI Pocket 2 has a great selection of accessories. I have also made a video about that and it will be linked in the description. If you want some features such as the wireless functionality or 3.5mm audio input, you will have to use the do-it-all handle. That has probably been the most significant complaint about the Pocket 2 from the community. I think that it is something that could be improved, which brings us to Pocket 3 rumors. First of all, I have no information about the Pocket 3 whatsoever. Second of all, I hope that it will happen. Personally, I would like to see DJI try something new, much like when they went from 26mm on OSMO Pocket to 20mm on the Pocket 2. For example, using Mini 3 Pro camera with 24mm focal length could be interesting. Another thing that I hope to see is a combination of gimbal stabilization and digital stabilization that would improve the walking performance. Integrating some of the features that are only available with do-it-all handle would be nice, but only if they can do it without making it larger. Having said that, even if DJI Pocket 3 won't be released this year, I won't be particularly sad, simply because the Pocket 2 is still a great device in the second half of 2023. As I've said in the beginning of the video, it is a handheld device that fits into a pocket with, in my opinion, very wisely chosen field of view, and importantly, without tasteless local tone mapping. For me personally, it is the middle way between the smartphones and action cameras, which makes it a very important device. Much like with any other pocket camera, there are some compromises. It is not made for careless use, the display is very small, and some of the functionality is only available with separate accessories. I think that it is a good compromise because you are getting a lot of compensation for those shortcomings. Overall, the combination of pocket size, gimbal, 20mm focal length, and excellent 4K video still works just as well as it did back in 2020. That means that I can still highly recommend DJI Pocket 2. So that's it for this video, thank you for watching, I hope that you liked it and that you have found it to be useful. Stay tuned for more videos and maybe consider subscribing if you don't want to miss my future content. I appreciate your feedback in form of thumbs up or thumbs down. If you would like to ask anything or share your opinion, please do so in the comment section, and see you next time.